Good evening, everyone. Since some of the students were requesting for a short video on this new concept, beneficial interest and significant beneficial interest, I want to share my thoughts on these two. Now, this topic comes under your Companies Act topic. Now, in this, there are two sections that are relevant in this, Section 89 and Section 90. Now, talking from examination perspective, you may not see too many questions in the scanner on these two concepts for one simple reason. These concepts were not there in the old Companies Act. And now the government is focusing on identifying the true owners, whether it's a Binami Act or any other such act where they are tightening your money laundering act and revising these provisions. This is also part of it. So since this is a new concept altogether in this Companies Act 2013, and that too, since this is a little high-end topic, probably in the beginning of this Companies Act, questions might not have been asked, but now that all the other routine topics have already been tested on it, now you can expect maybe up to 3 to 5 marks questions out of this small topic. Now let's discuss on this. Now before we discuss anything on this beneficial interest, or either we call it simply the beneficial owner or BO or SBO, now let us understand what are these concepts. Now the ownership is basically of two types. One is a registered owner and second one is a beneficial owner. But if we really get into the legal terms, you do have another type which is a legal owner, but let's not confuse ourselves. Now, limiting our discussion purely from the examination perspective, the owners are of two types, registered owner and beneficial owner. Registered owner, as the name suggests, is the owner whose name is registered in the members register or register of members. So he is the person on whose name the shares are registered. So that is why we call him as a registered owner. And the beneficial owner is the owner who is actually deriving the benefits, but his name is not in the register of members, but he is the real beneficiary. This is where the government is concerned. So this is where the government wants more clarity and the transparency in this. Now let us take an example so that you will understand it quickly. Now let us look at A. He is an individual. Now let's assume he is an individual. Now he has invested 100% in this A Limited, and A Limited has invested 60% in B Limited. Now as far as B Limited is concerned, A Limited is the shareholder. So that is how we consider A Limited as the registered owner. But when it comes to this A, though A Limited has invested, but A Limited is only as a registered owner, but the real beneficiary, that is whatever the dividends you are going to pay to A Limited, it all will be passed it back to this A, individual A. Therefore, for B Limited, A Limited is your registered owner and thus A is actually the beneficiary of the shares. So he would become our beneficial owner. So, but if you look at it from B Limited records, A's name will never appear anywhere, be it in the register of members or anywhere. That is where the government was concerned. So they want to have a transparency on, though the shares are registered in A's Limited, but who is the real beneficiary in it. Now, that is where this whole concept has come. But as at a student level, it is not necessary that every shareholder or for every share there is a registered owner and there is a beneficial owner. Majority of the shares are held by the real owners. So he himself may be the registered owner and he himself also may be the beneficial owner. In majority, like if as an investor, now if I am buying the shares in my name with my own money for my own benefit, then since the shares are going to be in my name, I am the registered owner, and since I am the beneficiary of all that, be it voting rights or be it dividend, I am also the beneficial owner. So the government really has no challenge if the registered owner and beneficial owner are one and same. The government wants to highlight and wants to know when the real owner, that is when the registered owner is different from the beneficial owner. So once you are clear with this, the difference between registered owner and beneficial owner, then we will get into these sections. Now, to give you a little more understanding, there are two sections that we are going to cover under this topic, section 89 and section 90. Now, section 89 talks about beneficial owner, which we have already highlighted here, who is different from the registered owner. Then we have section 90. Now, section 90 talks about SBO, that is significant beneficial owner. Now, who is this significant beneficial owner? We will discuss it at later. But since we are beginning, we are going to discuss only about beneficial owner. Keep only section 89 in mind. Now, let us come to this ICI material. Of course, any course, be it CMA or be it CS or be it CA, the material contents will almost be the same for one simple reason. What we are discussing is out of Companies Act. So Companies Act can't be different from for each of these courses. So since it's going to be the same, which are the course you belong to, the discussion is about, the discussions are going to be the same. Now, having understood who is the registered owner and who is the beneficial owner, what are the requirements of the Companies Act? Say all the requirements of the Companies Act is only on the disclosures. The government wanted real transparency. Now, who is the registered owner? And wherever the registered owner is not the beneficial owner, then the government want him to communicate to the company, though the shares are registered in my name, but the real beneficiary is XY, whoever is the person behind it. So, and similarly, they want such transparent communication from the beneficial owner as well. So, if he is a genuine person where he has nothing to hide, and probably for reasons like this, where this A is an individual and he started his company A Limited by owning this 100% shareholding, and through A Limited he has invested in B Limited, but he may not have anything to hide in it. So it's a business decision and it is his personal decision that he want to invest in B Limited through A Limited, but he want to be a legal compliant and he has nothing to hide. Then all that the government is saying is, if you are a beneficial owner but not being a registered owner, then communicate to the company, I am the real beneficiary, and though the registered person is XYZ. And so if you look at it broadly, the company is coming to know or getting that information from two different persons. One is the registered owner saying I am the registered owner but not the beneficial owner, and they are also parallelly getting from the other person saying I am the beneficial owner but the shares are not registered in my name, shares are registered in XYZ name. So on getting these two set of information, then the company will take a note of it. They do a comparison between these two and they have to prepare a summary with a complete detail. So for every share, who is the registered owner and who is the beneficial owner and what are the percentage of holding and all those other relevant details. Now, to understand this concept, let's go back to the summary. Once you look at this summary form, it will become more easy for you to understand the subsections. Now, let us have a look at it. As I said, under this 89, be it 89 or 90, all that the provisions require is a transparent disclosure. That's all. Now, so under section 89, as I've highlighted, 89 talks about only beneficial owner, and the significant beneficial owner is covered in altogether another section, which is 90. We will come to it later on completion of this section 89. Now, once there is a ben. Now, if you have a look at the summary of it, there are three forms that are required to be filed. One is MGT4, second is MGT5, and third one is MGT6. These are the three forms that would play a bigger role in this section 89. Now, who will have to file this MGT4 and with whom he will have to file? Now, if you look at it, this MGT4 is nothing but a declaration by whom? By the registered owner. And whom is he communicating? Now, he is communicating to the company. So, this communication is by the registered owner and to the company. Now, within how many days? Within 30 days of he he acquiring this beneficial ownership or registered ownership. Now, he needs to communicate to the company. To sum it up, the registered owner will write a letter to the company, will submit a declaration to the company within 30 days. Say through this form MGT4 saying I am the registered owner, but X, A or B, he is the beneficial owner. Similarly, the company will be getting a parallel communication from the beneficial owner to the company within the same 30 days. So this 30 days is going to be uniform across all. So, but this communication is from the BO, that is the beneficial owner to the company, whereas this communication is by the registered owner to the company. So if you look at, if you are the company secretary, you are getting the information from both the parties, from the registered owner as well as the beneficial owner. Now, but just the forms are different. Registered owner will communicate through MGT4, beneficial owner is communicating through MGT5. Then if you are the company secretary, you keep these two forms. That is what we are saying. On taking note of these two forms, the company shall prepare a summary of it, and they have to prepare a summary version of, for what is the share number, what are the details of the shares, and who is the registered owner and who is the beneficial owner, including the percentage of holding. So the company will be filing with the ROC through this MGT6. So to repeat it, registered owner to the company MGT4 and beneficial owner to the company MGT5. On taking note of these two, company will be filing with the ROC. This is MGT6. So this is the final form, but where from the company will get, because on the company itself, it may not be able to identify what is the relation between registered owner and the beneficial owner. So taking back to our example in the beginning, now when in this case, when A Limited is buying the shares of B Limited may not have an idea as to who is the person behind it. So they may not be knowing it. At least in the company, they can look at the balance sheet and they can identify. But if it's an individual, it may be very difficult. So that is why they require the declarations from the registered owner, and to confirm that, they also require a parallel communication from beneficial owner. So to help you revising, now registered owner will have to communicate to the company, and beneficial owner also will have to communicate to the company. This is what will happen through our MGT4, and this is what will happen through MGT5. And the company, after taking a note of these two, the company will be filing with the ROC, which is a form, a summary form, giving both the details, who is the registered owner and who is the beneficial owner. That form is what we are talking about, MGT6. And the communication, the time given is 30 days. That's all. Now, let's go by having that understanding. Now, let us look at the sections 89.1, 89.2, 89.3. Now, what does it say? A member, that is, member is nothing but a registered owner. So, like we said, who is a registered owner? He is nothing but a person whose name is entered in the register of members. So, therefore, he would become a member. Now, member, if he himself is also a beneficial owner, then he has nothing to do. He need not talk about it. But where he is a member but not holding beneficial interest, that is, he is a member, he is a registered owner, but he is not the beneficial owner, then only the requirement of this disclosure would come under this 89.1. Now he has to communicate, but how will he communicate? That is what the declaration we talked about, MGT4. Now parallel one. Now, any person holding beneficial interest. So, here we are talking about BO. So, this beneficial owner is also communicating to the company. How is he communicating? He is communicating by filing a declaration saying MGT5. Now, the company will take note of all this, and if you look at it, the company shall also have to file with the ROC. So, company will be filing with the ROC, and that declaration we call it as MGT6. But for all this, 30 days is the limit, though he has given it only here, but he has summarized here. So everything. So he will have to file it within 30 days. He will have to file it within 30 days. On taking a note of it, company also will have to file it within 30 days of receipt of this. Now, this is at the beginning. But maybe it can so happen that initially I am the registered owner and I am also the beneficial owner, but later on there is a change in the stand. Now I have become only the registered owner, but beneficial owner has become somebody else. So in such a case, that is, any changes happening. So then again, within 30 days, they have to file declaration. Now, who will have to file the declaration? Again, it goes back to the same. So, that is, the RO also has to file and BO also had to file. So, any changes in this, then again the company will be getting both the communications from the registered owner and from the beneficial owner. Then how will he communicate? Same, through MGT4. How will he communicate? Again through MGT5. So there is no change in the forms, just that either at the time of initial holding or any changes happening in the status of this registered owner and beneficial owner. At the end of it, 30 days is common and only the forms are different. Now, before I proceed further, at interlevel, this is what you need to have a good grip on it. If you have the good grip on this concept that you're seeing on the screen, then going through that will quickly happen. We can quickly finish it. Now, so then again, summarizing it. Now, who will be communicating to whom? So, if at all I have to prepare a short form, first registered owner will communicate to the company, and parallelly beneficial owner also will be communicating to the company. Now, these two people will communicate through MGT4 here and through MGT5 here. Now, based on these two data, company would be filing with the ROC. So, this happens through your MGT6. So, the form number is 6. This is 5 and this is 4. That's all. And if you're good with this concept, then going forward and reading all this will become like a cakewalk for you. Now let's look at it. Now this is the true sections of the Companies Act. Now I've taken it from ICI material, but the same would be the material in any other professional course. Nobody can change the language of it because all this are the source, major source of it is the Companies Act. Now, declaration by the registered holder. When I say registered holder, we are talking about our registered owner. So, in our language, we are talking about a registered owner. So, registered owner would be communicating with whom? So, like we have taken, registered owner would be communicating to the company. Through which form? Through the declaration MGT4. Within how many days? 30 days. Now, let's come here. That is what we are talking about. A person whose name is entered in the register of members, he is nothing but the registered owner. Now, that is what we are talking about. And he is communicating to whom? He will be communicating to the company. So, he is submitting a declaration. It's a declaration to the company through this MGT4. And once he submits this form, once he submits this MGT4 to the company, then the company, as we have said, within 30 days they would be filing it, and the company will be getting a parallel communication by the beneficial owner. So for us, he is nothing but our beneficial owner. So again, this is beneficial owner to the company, it's a repetition, and here it is a registered owner to the company. So that is what we are talking about. So MGT5 and within 30 days, same concept. Then on getting these two information, not only at the time of getting this, like we said, any change happening. So in this word, the bigger word is any change. Any change happening here, again within 30 days, then again they will be communicating. So the heading of this paragraph is nothing but the changes. Then who all will be communicating? Both the people will be communicating. Registered owner and beneficial owner. Whom will they communicate? They will communicate to the company. And then what the company should do? Company should go back and communicate to ROC. And what is the time limit given here? 30 days of your change. And once you submit the data, company is given 30 days time to summarize and file it with the ROC. So, but form numbers will continue to remain the same. When he is communicating to the company (MGT4), when beneficial owner (MGT5) and company to ROC (MGT6). There is no change in the forms. So, if you go back and look at it, 89.1 talked about RO to the company and 89.2 talked about it. So, this is just a section reference, and here it is 89.1. 89.1 talked about RO to the company and 89.2 talked about BO to the company. And then the company, this is what it is, and then filing of return by the company with the ROC. So company shall take note of such declarations and they will file this MGT6. So this is your section 89.6 read with rule 9.3. Now, what happens if I don't file the declaration? That is, what happens either when the registered owner is not filing the declaration. I am supposed to be honest. In this, you are expecting that the registered owner is honest and he is transparent. He is coming forward and telling the company, though the shares are in my name, but I am not the beneficiary, somebody else is receiving. But that may not be the true. Now, all people are not transparent. So, therefore, we have this penal sections. What happens if these declarations are not filed? Now, if these declarations are not filed, then the government is going to restrict your rights with regard to such shares. That's all it is underlined. So, if you don't declare and the company or the government comes to ROC, comes to know of such non-filing of declarations despite falling within this section 89, then they are going to restrict and they will not allow you to enforce. That is what you see it here. So they are not going to allow you to enforce any of your rights with regard to these shares by the beneficial owner. So they are not going to allow the beneficial owner to receive any benefits out of these shares for not having complying with these sections. Then, is it applicable to everyone? No, the exceptions. No, it's not applicable to everyone. Now, the exceptions are to these two, basically to a trust. These exemptions are basically to a trust which are created to set up a mutual fund or a venture capital fund or such other fund as may be approved by the SEBI. Then in such case, this is not this kind of declarations are not required to be impacting. Now, then whenever we said this rights of it are going to be restricted, then is it that because they have not filed the declaration, whether the company can avoid making the payment of dividend and all? That's where the company is clear. So duty of the company to pay dividend and all are not affected. That is being discussed in separate provisions. If the company has to pay dividend, they have to pay. But if there are any such declaration they don't want it, then they are supposed to keep it in abeyance. But company cannot take benefit of this and stop making the payment. So if you don't want to make it, if you want to enforce, then keep it in abeyance. Then there is a provision for going to the tribunal and all that we will discuss. But the company cannot take this as an advantage of not because the registered owner and the beneficial owner have not filed the declarations, they cannot stop paying the dividend. So company can't do that. So that's what we discuss here. So your right or your duty to pay dividends are not affected because of these provisions. So that will continue to be there. And then we are discussing what is the meaning of this beneficial interest. Now, what is a beneficial interest? That is either directly or indirectly through any contract. If you look at it, either directly or indirectly through any contract or agreement or otherwise, either as a person alone or together with any other person. This is, if you discuss it from a real company secretaries in practice perspective, this is a very challenging section. So the onus is on the company. So they have to identify, maybe there are two individuals, they both are related and they both have collectively invested in the company. They are the real beneficiaries. But there is no way how the company will know. But still the onus is on the company to identify. So in not only alone, either a person in his own stand or together with any other person in combination. Now, if he is exercising or caused to be exercised, any rights attached to it, or he is going to receive or participate in the dividend. So this talks about voting rights and this talks about dividend basically. So this is the voting right and this is the right to receive the dividend. Significantly, of course, this doesn't end with only voting right, but basically the voting right and dividend right. Then that is what we call it as a beneficial interest. Now, coming to the fag end of this section 89, apart from this exemption, what they have provided to this trust, are there any other exemptions? It is given the provision, this section 89, particularly this subsection 11, this will authorize the central government by notification, they can exempt any other class or classes of companies from complying the requirements of it. But for this, they will do it only if it is in the public interest. So, for you as student, it is the central government who can decide the exemptions. But again, as usual, because many of the Companies Act provisions or either not applicable to government company or they are applicable in a different manner. So coming again, discussing it, whether this entire sections 89, is it applicable to the government company? That is, do they also have to get these declarations and file this with this ROC? Now, there is an exemption to government company, but this exemption granted to the government company will not be allowed for them in case there are any defaults by the company. So, if they are not complying with these two sections, section 137 and section 92, which deals with filing of financials and filing of annual returns. In case they are defaulters of these two, or either of it, because here it is or. So, any one of these defaults, either filing financials or annual return with the ROC, then such government company cannot enjoy the benefit. So, if you talk about the exemptions, the central government is authorized to exempt, and based on this, the central then another one then has this power has been exercised. The Act itself provides that these provisions are not applicable to government company, provided they are compliant with 137 and 92. Any defaults in complying with these two, then that is this 137 and 92, then though it's a government company, such exemption will not be granted to it. So, these are the disclosure requirements of 89. Then we come to the penalty of it. What will happen if I am supposed to make the declaration but I have not made the declaration? But we have already talked about the company restricting the rights. They will not allow you to enforce any of the rights by the beneficial owner. Apart from that, there are monetary penalties also talked about it. Now, what are all the penalties? If I look at it as a summary, the penalty can be either on the person required to make the declaration but has not filed the declaration, and on the company also, because the onus at the end of it under 89 and 90 is on the company. So then, or the company not filing these declarations with the ROC, though they have received MGT4 and MGT5, then what happens? These are the penalties. So the person, 50,000 for one-time default, but if it is a continuing failure, then they will be paying 200 per day of every default, per day of default, of course subject to maximum of 5 lakh rupees. And if the default is by the company, then company also will be penalized, and in addition to it, the defaulting officer also will be penalized. Now the company will have to pay 1,000 rupees per day subject to this cap of 5 lakh rupees, and the defaulting officer will be levied 2 lakh rupees as a penalty. So with this, we conclude our discussion on 89. Now, I give a brief summary of this section 89, and if you are good with 89, understanding 90 is the simplest one. Now, again, to come from the beginning and give this 2-minute summary of this entire section provisions of 89, the owners are of two types, registered owner and beneficial owner. Whomever you call a member, so you are calling a member this person, he is called as a member because his name is entered into the register of members. But actually he is the person who is behind the scene, so who is actually enjoying the voting rights or who is actually receiving the dividend. So he is the actual beneficiary. So either registered owner and beneficial owner. Then what does this 89 talks about? 89 talks about disclosure requirements. Now it's all about communicating. Now what is that communication? MGT4, MGT5, MGT6. MGT4, registered owner will communicate to the company by submitting this declaration in the form of MGT4, and then parallel declaration will be filed by the beneficial owner with the company through this MGT5. The company, after taking note of these two, they will validate. The company is supposed to validate, and they have to do their own checks and balances. After doing their own background verification, the company will be summarizing and filing with the ROC MGT6. And what is the time limit for this? 30 days. Now, is it only at the time of becoming registered owner or becoming beneficial? Yes, at that time, plus any changes thereafter, again they are supposed to follow the same route by filing the same forms. What happens if I don't file? Then they are not going to allow the beneficial owner to enjoy or to enforce any rights attached to it. Apart from that, there are also monetary penalties which we have discussed. But are these provisions applicable to everyone? No, the central government can decide any class of companies to whom these sections, these provisions of these sections are not applicable. And then again, one last question, which may come in your exams: are these provisions applicable to government company? Generally, no, as long as they are compliant with section 137 and section 92. But if they become non-compliant with these two sections, but what does these two sections deal with? 137 deal with filing of financials, and section 92 deals with filing of annual return with the ROC. Any non-compliance in these two sections, then the government, though it's a government company, they cannot enjoy the benefit, and they do have to comply with this provisions of section 89. Now, having discussed 89, let's move on to section 90. Now that you are clear with who is the beneficial owner, now all this here we talk about is the word significant. So you may be a beneficial owner. If you are only a beneficial owner, then 89 would come into picture. But not only that you are a beneficial owner, but you are a significant beneficial owner, then this section 90 would come in. So then when a person would become, not only that he is called as a beneficial owner, he is called as a significant beneficial owner. Now, though it has been defined who is an SBO in section 90, but since though it talks about 25%, but there is a one more or any other percentage which may be prescribed. So since the rules are prescribed 10%, for your exams perspective, don't remember the 25, and this 10% is what ultimately you have to remember, because since it is said in the rules that it is 10% and the act said either 25% or any other percentage, then since they have specified 10% in the rules, this 10% will become dominating. So whenever you read it for the examination, you remember this, because this is an amended one. So this amendment has been made in 2019. So, and though they say 2019, but by the time these have become active for your at academics, it was almost 2020. And you know about this corona time and all. So since exams didn't happen in a rhythmic way, so for quite some time, that is till 2021, 22 and most part of 23, these topics were not tested so much. But now that everything is settled and everything is back into the form and all other amendments have already been tested, now you have got more probability of a question coming out of these concepts for your May 2024 and afterwards. Now, then let's see who is this significant beneficial owner. So the only word that added here is significant. Not only that he is a beneficial owner, he is a beneficial owner of significant shares. Now then, how many shares would make it significant? Or when I can call him, this beneficial owner, a significant one. So it is the 10%. Then 10% of what? Say 10% of shares, or 10% of voting right, or if he has the right to participate in the dividend of more than 10% of the total dividend, or without being a shareholder, if he can exercise a significant influence or the control, then he will be deemed as a significant beneficial owner. To summarize, what are all the 4 points that you should remember to when a beneficial owner would become a significant beneficial owner? It is the 10% first. Now 10% of what? 10% of shares, 10% of voting right, and 10% of dividend. Apart from that, if he is also exercising significant influence or control, then any one of it, remember the word or, not that he should be satisfying all the conditions. Any one condition, that is not only that he is a beneficial owner, but he is a beneficial owner for more than 10% of the shares, then he would become SBO. And once you are an SBO, section 90 would come into the picture. Again, to repeat it, then do you have to remember the 25 or 10%? You have to remember 10%. Now, 10% of what? 10% of shares, 10% of voting right, 10% of dividend, or is exercising or enjoying significant influence. That is where the next, this one will come. What do you mean by significant influence? Significant influence is nothing but your ability to control, or your power to control directly or indirectly in two things: the financial or operating policies of the company. So if you have the power to control or to participate in financial or operating policies or the decisions, then you're said to have this significant influence. Now, let's that is when you would become SBO. Now, going back from focusing on your exam perspective, whose obligation it is to identify whether there is an SBO or no SBO. As I have been repeating, the onus is on the company. So, reporting company is the company which ultimately have to file with the ROC. That is why we call it as a reporting company. So, the onus is on the company. Then what is the company's responsibility? Two things. One is to identify who is an SBO. That is their responsibility. They have to identify the SBO and they have to cause this SBO to make declaration. So they must communicate with this. Therefore, they have to identify, and such identified SBOs have to be communicated to file the necessary declarations. Then, what is the declaration is going to file under 90? Will he be filing the NGT4? No, he will not be filing NGT4. Then what are the declarations? So, since the material order is based on the section wise, but for us, we are more comfortable for a logical understanding. Let's go back to the summary of it. What are all the 4 forms that are important under section 90? That is Ben 1, Ben 2, Ben 3, Ben 4. Now, what are these forms are all about? Ben 1 is a declaration which will have to be filed by the SBO to the company. So, he will be filing Ben 1 to it. Then, based on this declaration, the company will file with the ROC. What is they file? They file Ben 2 form. Then, what is this Ben 3? Ben 3 is only the register. This is the form of the register that is supposed to be maintained by the SBO. Register of SBOs to be maintained by the company. Who would be maintaining this register? The company. So, this Ben 3 had to be maintained by the company. We will have a discussion. What are all the contents on Ben 3? Then, what is Ben 4? Now, Ben 4 is nothing but wherever a company has an information or where the company believes that a person might be this significant beneficial owner, but he is not communicating to the company. So that's through this Ben 1. But the company is having some information that he must be an SBO, or having identified that he is an SBO, he is not providing necessary information to the company to satisfy themselves whether he is an SBO or not an SBO. So whenever the company wants such details, then that is when the company would be issuing this Ben 4. So who will issue this to whom? The company will serve this notice. Company to the SBO. That is, the company wants certain information, then they will send this notice in the form of Ben 4 to the SBO. And whenever the company is serving the notice, then it is obligation on the part of this SBO to file such declaration. Then comes the question, what happens if we don't respond to Ben 4? Then what the company can do? Now, all that we will do. They can go for the tribunal and all. We will discuss it. But before that, keep this point simple and clear in your mind. So, in the 89, the forms that you are talking about are 3 forms, MGT4, MGT5, MGT6. But in section 90, which deals with basically the SBO, then you are going to talk of 4 forms, Ben 1, Ben 2, Ben 3, Ben 4. Ben 1 is filed by SBO to the company, Ben 2 is filed by company to the ROC, and Ben 3 is nothing but a register to be maintained by the company. Ben 4 is a notice for getting additional information which is issued by the company to the SBO. This is the summary of it. Now, come back to the provisions, because once you have the overview, it becomes easy for you to understand this. Now, as I said, when you will become an SBO, if you are holding more than 10% of beneficial shares. Now, what is the 10%? Is it only shares? No. 10% either of shares or word. So, shares, voting rights, dividend. Apart from this, significant influence. Then what do you mean by significant influence or control? That is your power to participate. That is what? Your power to participate in 2 decisions, the financial and operating decisions. Then you are called, you are said to have significant influence. Then you will also become SBO, irrespective of your 10% or no 10%. Now, Then who has to identify this SBO? Now, as I said, it is the responsibility of the reporting company. What all they are responsible? They are responsible for two things: to identify the SBO and to make him, to cause such SBO to make the declaration. Then what happens? You are forcing the company to get the declaration from the SBO. What happens if he is non-responsive? What happens if he is not a responsible citizen and he is a responsible person and he is not communicating despite the request by the company? That is why you have been for. So wherever the company wants some information, that is what, wherever the company knows or has reasonable cause to believe that he is a SBO but he is not filing this declaration, then they can serve this Ben 4, like we have seen it in the summary. Now, to the wherever they have the knowledge of it, the company can file this one. And then when they can file, when that is not only that he is now, he has become significant. If the company believes that any time during the last 3 years, that is 3 years immediately preceding the date, he was an SBO, but he has not been communicating. The company came to know about now, but he has been an SBO for last 3 years. But any time in the last 3 years, then the company will serve him a notice, Ben 4, asking for information. Now, Ben 3 will come to it. First, we will talk about it. What happens if the SBO stops responding? That's what we talk about. When the person fails to give the company the information. Who is that person? Whomever the company suspected, whomever the company believed that he is an SBO, then the company served Ben 4. But that person is not giving any information, is not giving it. Then the company will make an application to the tribunal saying, we served this person Ben 4, asking him to provide additional information, but in two reasons. Either he has not provided the information or he has provided information, but that is not satisfactory to the company. Company believes that the information is incorrect or incomplete. So either he don't give the information or he has given information but the company is not satisfied. Then how the company can force? Company is not in, they don't have the legal powers so to take an action on him. So they can only approach the tribunal. We want him to give the information but he has not been responding. That is when this tribunal will get into the scene. Then he is going to apply, because normally whenever this notice is given, this Ben 4 is given, he is given 30 days. Within 30 days, this person is going to provide the complete information to the company. What happens if he is not giving information? Then the company will wait for 30 days, and after the expiry of this 30 days, that is 15 days after the expiry of the specified period, that is nothing but 30 days, company will go to the tribunal saying we have served a notice on him, we believe that he is an SBO and he is not been providing information, then we need your help. Then the tribunal will conduct the investigation and they can pass an order to it. So then what the tribunal can do? So the tribunal, what orders can they pass? They can put restriction, they can pass any order. It's a tribunal, so they can pass any order, but that's what could be those restrictions? So restrictions on the transfer, or suspension of the right to receive dividend, or suspension of voting rights, or any other restriction, whatever they believe. So that is what the company will be asking the tribunal for the order. So what they can do, then on receiving this application, within 60 days of receipt of the application, the company is going to make such restrictions. So if the tribunal believes that yes, the company is correct and this person is not responding to the notice, and the tribunal is satisfied with that fact, then whatever the company is asking for, like asking the tribunal to pass order for restricting the transfer, receive the dividend, voting right, then the tribunal may pass an order. So only two timelines you have to remember. What's the timeline for the person to respond to this Ben 4? 30 days. So three timelines are there. 30 days is the timelines for the SBO to respond to the company after receiving this Ben 4. What happens if we don't respond within 30 days? Then 15 days is the time limit for the company to appeal to the tribunal. Now that is NCLT. Now 15 days is the time limit for company to go for the tribunal, that is NCLT. Then what are the timelines for the tribunal to decide it? 60 days. So the tribunal to pass an order. So they will to pass an order restricting the voting rights, the any of this other rights, including dividend and all. So the tribunal is given 60 days time to restrict that order. Now, what happens if you are aggrieved by this order? So the tribunal had passed this order of restriction, and as an SBO you believe, or as the company, so any one party, if the SBO believes the order has gone against him, he can appeal for it, he can appeal to the tribunal. Or if the company believes that the tribunal has not restricted the order because the tribunal believe the SBO whatever information, then again they can go for either relaxation or lifting of the restrictions. Any aggrieved party can go for a request for re-looking into that order. So, but this request will have to be made within 1 year. So this is important, within 1 year from the date of order. This is like a review petition. So the tribunal has already passed, and on that order, if you believe it has not gone good, then any aggrieved party, it can be a company, or that's what, it can be a company or it can be a person, anyone can go to this tribunal, again make an application to the tribunal either for relaxation or for lifting of the restrictions. But the time limit here is 1 year. But 1 year starts from when? 1 year from the date of the order, what they have already passed here, which is 60 days. So if we go back and look at the timelines, 30 days SBO to respond to company on receipt of BEN4, 15 days for the company to go to the tribunal in case no information is received, or received but not satisfactory, then 15 days is the time limit for the tribunal, for the company to go to the tribunal. And once it is making an application, the tribunal will have to pass an order within 60 days. But if you are aggrieved by the order, then 1 year is given for the review petition. What we can call it in a general language, that is what he is calling it as a right of the aggrieved party to go for it. That's all. So this is what is all about this SBO. Then what is this BEN3? Now, BEN3 is nothing but, as I said, it is nothing but the maintenance of register. Then who will have to maintain? The company will have to maintain. So it is an obligation of the company, mind you, not the SBO. So it is the company which will have to maintain. Now, what is this register is called? This register is called Register of SBOs. So that is Register of Significant Beneficial Owners. What should be the form of it? What is specified in BEN3 of it? Then is it a confidential document, or can it be verified? Yes, it is open for inspection, but during business hours. So it must be open for inspection. Then any payment is required for doing it? Yes. So it is the company is going to decide the fees as may be specified by the company, but it shall not be exceeding 50 rupees for each inspection. 50 is the maximum, but less than that, anything, it is the choice of the company. But how much time they have to allow for inspection? But not less than 2 hours. So such reasonable time of not less than 2 hours on every working day, as the board decides, that will be treated as a business hours. These business hours have to be kept for 2 hours. So within that time, any person can come and verify this register by paying this amount, which is decided by the company, which is maximum of 50 rupees. That is your BEN3. Now, so going back to the summary. Now, what are all the 3 forms under 89? 89 will have 3 forms: MGT4, MGT5, MGT6. We have already talked about it. But section 90, which deals with SBO, it will have 4 forms: BEN1, BEN2, BEN3, BEN4. BEN1 is for the SBO to respond, submit the declaration to the company, and BEN2, based on such BEN1, the company will have to file with the ROC, and BEN3 is nothing but the register which shall be kept open during the business hours, and BEN4 is a notice which the company may be issuing to SBO. What happens if the SBO is not submitting the information to the company? What happens if he is not providing, or he is providing but that is incomplete or inaccurate? Then the company will go to the tribunal. Within how many days? So all that is what we have discussed, 15 days. Then once he is going to the tribunal, what is the time limit for passing an order? Within 60 days. But what happens if you are not in agreement? You believe that justice is not done to you. You want this tribunal to review it. Then you can make a review petition any time up to 1 year from the date of the order. So this is the summary of this 89 and 90. One final look at it is for whom this SBO rules are not applicable. Mind you, this is only for the SBO, that is section 90, whom all it is. So, who don't have to submit these declarations. So, in the company, in any company, for example, if the shares are held by IEPF authority or any holding company, provided they've already submitted, this company has submitted BEN 2 with the ROC, then SBO don't have to. That is, holding company don't have to submit BEN 1 to this company. Now, or the central government or state government or any of this reporting company or body corporate or an entity and all, which is wholly or partly by the central government. These are controlled by the central government or state governments. So, or if it is an investment vehicle, which is such as mutual funds and AIFs and REITs and all that, which he has given, then this SBO rules are not applicable. That is, there is no need for SBO to submit, to furnish declarations, because section 90 is not applicable for them. Then what are all the penalties? The penalties are simple. By the SBO, who is supposed to submit the declaration but is not submitting, 50,000 as a one-time penalty. But if it is a continuing failure, then 1,000 per day of default, subject to 2 lakh rupees is the maximum. And what happens if the company fails to submit BEN 2? Now, that is with the company supposed to communicate to ROC. What happens if they are not? Then you have to pay a penalty of 1 lakh rupees and this 500 rupees for the continuing failure. So, if it is a one time, it is 1 lakh. Continuing failure, 500 rupees for each day, subject to 5 lakh rupees as the maximum. This is on the company. And every defaulting officer, then in the place of 1 lakh, this 25,000 will come. In the case of 500, in the place of 500, 200 rupees will come. And this 5 lakh would become 1 lakh. Just that amounts are, these are on the defaulting officer, and this is on the company, this is on the defaulting officer. That's all. So these are the points with regard to it. And it is worth to note that the section 90, whatever are these, they are all compoundable. So anyway, he may not go and question you further what are all compoundable, what are non-compoundable and all, but these are compoundable. Let's restrict to the level at which you require. And then of course there is a general section. What happens if anywhere any information furnished is false information? That too, they have furnished this false information or incorrect willfully. So there is a deliberate attempt to submit false information. Then obviously for any fraud we have one common section, 447. That section would come into picture where any willful submission of incorrect information or incomplete information. Now again the question is the same. 89 was not applicable to government company. Then is section 90 applicable to government company? The answer is no. So it is exemption is there to the government company, again subject to compliance of section 137 and 92, which deals with filing of financial statements and filing of annual return. So hope with this we have covered the complete details of section 89 and section 90. So which 89 deals with your beneficial owner and section 90 deals with the significant beneficial owner. So with this, I will stop my discussion on this, and I will come back on short videos on other important concepts. But while listening to this, if you believe not on this topic or alone or any other topic where you would prefer me to release any such short videos on any concept, need not be the entire chapter, kindly let me know through the comments, and I will do my best to come up with whatever the knowledge I am having it. Thank you everyone for patient listening.